Welcome to the HoCo Cyber Collective Podcast, where community, technology, and stories converge.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. It's the end of week meetup for the HoCo Cyber Collective. I've got Josh, and this is Colin. Hopefully some other people will trickle in. But Josh, how was your week?
Pretty good. Have been keeping busy, been interviewing people and writing documents.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
You mentioned before the break, before we hit record, that there was some conference type stuff. Can you just share about what you were working on this week?
Oh
Since
yeah.
we didn't have a class to go to this week.
Well, we didn't have a class to go to this week because there was I'm blanking on the name of the actual thing. Uh, a cybersecurity themed conference that happened at the same time that Bob, one of the teachers of the course, was a panel member for.
Well, there
So
you go. Well, that's cool. And actually, that reminds me, and one thing we learned sort of the hard way in the first cohort about looking at that schedule of when these DEF CON fell right when our final meeting was, where it
yeah,
was the presentation for our graduation. Several people couldn't make it because they were at DEF CON.
yeah.
And it was, for a cybersecurity focused accelerator to, and unfortunately, and a very unfortunate double booking, but it's good to see that they've adjusted
Yep.
to that.
And then yesterday I attended the Chessa Pitch competition.
Oh, what's
Uh,
that?
so it's Maryland Innovation Center or something like that at Arnold College near Baltimore.
Okay.
And they have a a pitch competition throughout the entire year. And yesterday was the finalists
Oh, cool.
for the year.
And
And they were mostly
was it all
companies.
cybersecurity? Was it
No, in no
mixed
cybersecurity.
company?
It was mostly med tech, medical devices, that sort of thing. There was one developer tool. The winner was actually um, uh, a genetic screening to help you pick the best pot to buy for what you're trying to treat, with, of course, a web app.
Oh, of course, obviously. That that reminds me that I work with farmers, ag tech, and actually conference. Speaking of conferences, on the first weekend in December, December 5th, 6th, and 7th, I'm going to be on the Eastern Shore for the annual Maryland Farm Bureau convention. This is my fifth year. I think I remain the only cybersecurity company who actually bothers to show up to these events, so
Hmm.
the stage remains my own. Um, I can also comfortably tell you I've generated exactly $0 in revenue from targeting
Yeah.
farmers, but that's okay because I like to eat food, and it's in some ways it forces me to be better at messaging because it's
Hmm.
really, really hard. Like, could you imagine trying to explain? Do you know a lot of farmers, Josh?
No, no.
Most people don't. It's sort of like this completely different, but we all are unified, and I like to consume food several times
Yes.
a day. Um, the way they talk about technology is very different. My first year, I was on a panel about because cybersecurity was starting to make it into the news. So these
Yeah.
people were afraid. They were like, "What are we supposed to do?" So I was on a panel discussion about cybersecurity, and when I introduced myself, they asked me what I did, and I said I worked in IT, and they said, "What's that?" And I was like, I work with computers." That they understood.
Yes.
And by the end of it, they knew me as the smart cybersecurity guy who works with computers.
Hmm.
Um, and I go back every year because they're the nicest group of people.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that I will always say that really separates farmers from like my enterprise customers that I used to have,
Hmm.
that sometimes it would seem like delight in wasting my time. Like, hey, can you design this six different ways and I'll buy it from somebody else? The farmers say thank you. Like it's amazing how good it feels when you can see that your question about setting up email. I'm there doing
Yeah.
like an ad hoc, like, hey, tech guy here, you want to ask any questions that you have. Um, but it's a lot of work. It happens during the winter. A lot of the I am now apparently considered a expert in the ag tech field
Mm,
just by virtue of being in it. I guess for a little
yeah.
while, not to ruin my reputation. But yeah, I'm going to be talking to the future farmers, the young folk that are there that are the Cyber 911 for most farmers. So, um, did you have you are you looking are you registered to be in any pitch competitions yet, or that
Uh,
for like the
I've not registered. I've been done a couple of them. About a month ago, I was invited to go down to Huntsville, Alabama, where I pitched there.
oh and there he is.
Hello.
Speaking of the devil,
Hey,
he's still up here. Hey Vivek,
uh,
Hey, morning.
morning.
but no, I haven't applied to, or I've applied to, but not been accepted to pitch competitions.
Do you have a how many applications have you sent out for that?
Half a dozen, I think. Basically anything I find in the area. Like I applied to the data tribe stuff
Yeah.
and a few other things. And the problem is I don't have a product yet, which means I'm very, very early. And
Think of it as liberating
yeah,
because it's we're just selling ideas here, man.
yep,
It's
yep,
think of the vision. Imagine if this was everywhere.
yep.
Um, one little tip, I don't know if you do this, but a lot of these applications are online.
Hmm.
After filling out the first dozen or so, I finally decided to work smarter. And every time I filled one out, just like I do with my
Hmm.
ChatGPT stuff, I would write it in Microsoft Word. I would write their question
Yep.
and my corresponding answer. And would you know it, there was a lot of
Oh
overlap in a
yeah.
lot of these applications. So once you had written explain Sentinel Forge technologies in 250 words or
Yeah.
less, you didn't have to do it again.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of this stuff was before AI. So it was just to pass that on. Just I have a repository of like all of my applications because I got sick and tired of doing it. Um,
Yeah.
I imagine it's the same for grant applications that they're asking a lot of the
Hmm.
same thing. And I know I have a buddy who works in a materials space. It's Renegade
Yeah.
Plastics. Um, they have an entire person whose job it is to apply for grants. It's a full-time position.
Yeah.
But, but hey, Vivek, how was your week?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Still building out stuff. So I ran out of Azure credits on my account, so we had to create a new account and just move everything over.
Yeah. Did
That
we talk
moved it
about
down.
that with last week about your experience with, how quickly these things can happen?
Sorry, how quickly, what, you mean
So
infrastructure?
you'd had so the background was when we were in the cohort together, you'd shared your development plan, which and we both knew this. When you are a new startup, Azure and Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are very, very generous with providing you free. Here's 1,000 free startup credits to get you going with a veritable smorgasbord of every developer tool you could dream of using available using these free credits. And you had what was a very good, cost conscious way of I'm going to develop my product and I'm going to run it in the cloud using these free credits. And then as I get paying customers, there'll be a transition to pay because you switch to pay. You pay for these things after the start, right?
Yeah, yeah, that transition will happen eventually. It's not going to happen right away because, especially if I get into the TEDCO program, TEDCO has AWS credits, and that's another thing that's like, well, all my scripts are written up for Azure. Now I'll have to at some point write, scripts Terraform scripts to deploy to AWS. But I'm more familiar with AWS than I am with Azure, so I'm not too worried. It won't take me too long. It'll take me maybe a day to do that. The
Actually,
the thing
speaking
that
to
I'm
someone who knows about this stuff just conceptually, could you run through what does it take to do what you're talking about? Like you're running, there's a different language, there's a different scripting language that's used in the different hyperscalers.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few out there. There's Terraform, and there's OCaml and one or two others. Or I think people write their scripts in OCaml and then they integrate that into Terraform. Terraform is the main one that most people use and are familiar with. And so what you can do is you can basically use Terraform to write up. I call them. It's not really code. I call it more like configuration files. So you're basically configuring any and all resources that you want to use in the cloud. Like if you want to use a VM, then it's like, all right, fine. Well, what size of VM do you want?
How,
And then
how
they have
much?
different
How many processing cores? What memory? What type
exactly
of
for what
storage?
use yeah for what use case basically. Or you could use GKE. So sorry, Kubernetes, right? And then each cloud provider has their own thing. Like Azure has AKS, which is Azure Kubernetes Service. G-Cloud has GKE, which is Google Kubernetes Engine. AWS has something else. I don't remember the name right now.
Right.
AKS or no, I don't know. Amazon Kubernetes, something like that, right? And so yeah, so you have all these different services the cloud provides, and then you have like Terraform modules that then you can just script up saying, hey, I want to invoke the VM module, but I want this VM type, I want this memory, this is the network that I want to use, the zone that I want to put it in, like availability zone or region, like East Coast, West Coast,
That's
Central.
resiliency. Like, where do you want it to run? And, if you
Well,
have
not really. That's not really the resiliency would be the availability zone. So
the
within
availability groups, I think is the DAG,
Yeah,
distributed
exactly. But
availability.
then the regions are basically like where are your customers located? So if your customers are located in US East, then deploy your infrastructure there. So that way you get really fast response times, right? Because everything's in US East.
Well, not
Well,
compared to on premises, but that's the
comparatively
lower
fast.
latency. What is
Like
the
like
latency how much does that affect what you do? Does latency have any impact
oh,
on that?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if your customers are in US East and you set up and you deploy your infrastructure in, I don't know, Asia somewhere, then that could add like a couple seconds worth of latency to request. So depending on where you deploy, like that is super important.
Well, and speaking is, again, we remember back when if a website took 10 seconds to respond, that's when it was our
Yeah.
threshold for this is broken. Now I catch myself, ugh, my video is not loading immediately. Ugh, refresh. What it was interesting though, because the discussion we were having, we were brainstorming a little bit, and your development was using less cloud resources. It was not to add features, functionality, or a cool new widget. It was basically my car burns too much gas and I'm upgrading it so it burns less gas in its normal operation. And I do that actually in some ways by limiting its operation. Like the car will just turn off when you're up at speed. That way we save fuel and then you have to turn it back on. And yeah, that works. It's just there are trade-offs for doing that. Um, and it was just because that when you develop on premises and the resources are there, yes, you have to have them available or pay for them. It's never been cheaper, as an aside. Um,
For on-prem.
It is the cost of us again the computer that I am currently looking at right now that is acting as is basically the equivalent of a utility server.
Hmm.
I've been reduced to using Windows 10 as my operating system, professional, because the cool thing about these OEM hardware is it comes with a Windows license, which
Yeah.
is typically the most expensive part of any solution. I just wipe the box and put Linux on for my nodes. For this one, I keep Windows
Hmm.
because it's useful, and I can't use Linux as well. But less than $100. It was, I think,
Yeah.
$97 on Amazon. As it's a used computer, but it's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, quad core processor, 220 gigabytes of all flash, solid state
Yeah.
storage, wireless gigabit. When I started doing solution designing 20 years ago, we would have called that a host server.
Yes.
And it would have cost 15 to $20,000 for each one, and you needed to have multiple ones because you'd be a madman to put all of your eggs in one basket. And so that is now available for less than $100, and people think there's no value in it. You can buy used machines with almost more than 100 gigabytes of RAM, which again just seems insane to me. And then I tried to run a local LLM on my 8 gigabyte graphics card and realized how very, very teeny tiny that computer is compared to what you can get. But no, it's still a capital expenditure, but you know, you have a certain amount of freedom on it. You're not constrained to the internet. I can have my intellectual property stored on local storage that I control. It's and again, it requires you. We were talking on, Discord about those basic skills that I actually had a topic I really wanted to talk about because I wanted to. Let me share my screen real quick. Because this was very relevant. You may have noticed in the last week that the internet broke again. With what you were talking about with provisioning and everything like that, Vivek, I am at the edge of my ski tips when I understand that they are a box that is somehow involved in the internet as we know it. And this is also, for those who don't know, this is a web comic.
Yep.
This is where I think we are.
Yep.
And what was it? So it was Amazon took the internet down, and then Cloudflare took the internet down. And we just assume that the cloud is like, again, this vaporous, literally in the clouds. It's just magic. It just works. You don't have to worry about all these stupid little bricks down here. That's the old way of doing it. And then you've got the graybeards with the suspenders that are still keeping the lights on. And they're like, I don't know, the trolls of knowledge that have the knowledge of how this works, and they're the only one that knows it. And we're like shockingly involved in that. Like, were either of you impacted by this?
I wasn't able to log into a couple of sites, but that's it.
Yeah, same here.
For me, the biggest impact was that my son's private Roblox server was not able to load for one of his games. And I had to explain to him why that was. And I was confused. I'm like, all right,
Well,
so there's Cloudflare and it broke. And now there's some things in the internet don't work. Can you explain like what happened? Like, do you guys have an understanding of what happened, or
a little bit. I mean, my understanding is Cloudflare is essentially a caching system, provides a caching system, if I remember correctly, and that failed. So it wasn't able to query the expected server and just failed out. At least that's my understanding. I could be completely wrong.
It wasn't a cyber attack, is what I heard.
No, it wasn't. It was an internal update that went bad.
Vivek, can you tell the story you told me?
Yeah, so I mean, I also don't know this. I haven't looked into the specifics of what exactly happened, but they basically sit. So if you have your application over here, right, that's facing the internet, and you go and tell somebody that, hey, log into sentinelforgetechnologies.com, right? So when they visit sentinelforgetechnologies.com, it first gets rerouted through a Cloudflare server that will then do its own bot detection magic, make sure that you're a legitimate user and you're not trying to scrape the site or what have you, and then it forwards a request onto your app. So that's the basic flow. So this person that I came across on LinkedIn created an update and pushed it. It was her first day on the job. I don't know whether she caused this incident that happened, but the timeline kind of matched up because she posted literally 2 hours after the incident resolved. And so this poor girl, she just joined Cloudflare that day, first day on the job, first commit that she made, and she broke the internet. And she was just complaining about, oh my God, it was so complicated. Like, she didn't know anything, right? I mean, it's her first day. But it's like, I'll have to find the post again to see what exactly she said. But basically, she made an update in a module over here, but that module kind of was a dependency that was getting sucked into something else. which was a
Yeah.
dependency that was getting sucked into something else, which was a dependency that was getting sucked into something else. And that thing had some limit on, yes, I remember now. She added a block to a config file. So the size of the config file increased, right? And then she
As-
checked in that config file, and somewhere 3 levels above, something was set to limit the size of the config file or something. Like, hey, if the
Ooh.
config file is
Mhm.
greater than this size, then I'm going to crash. And then that thing crashed, and that took the whole
So
internet down.
something broke on the inside of the black box and
Yeah,
Well,
hit it
and
with
it
a
was
I
a
mean,
black box.
there
Like, you
are,
didn't know. Like, it's about like it's your first
black
day. How do
box.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smoke is coming
and
out of it. That's weird. That's never happened before.
and there are so many things that have this. Like, I use SQLite for a lot of stuff. I mean, SQLite is in like 90% of applications. It's everywhere. It
Right.
is maintained by exactly 3 people.
We wouldn't want to have too many. We wouldn't want to pay to have too many people responsible for that. That at least.
Well, it's a nonprofit consortium that only 3 people can update it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing that I worry about is again, it's that image of there's a house of cards, and again, I don't
Mhm.
truly. I understand more than most, and I don't understand how it's magic at a
Yeah,
certain point. Wireless works by spraying internet particles on us. That's my conceptual of
so
how I
long as the
get through
magic
my
stuff
day.
doesn't get out.
Um, and if there's thick walls in the way, the spray is hard to go through there. So, they got to design for that. The sprayers must have clear line of sight. Um, but and internet traffic is different colored waters flowing through different pipes of different diameters, basically, and you need to make sure the pipe is big enough to handle the volume of water you're going to send it. Otherwise, it's going to back up and things are going to break. I'm almost embarrassed to share that thought process with actual engineers who are like, colored water? That is such a radical oversimplification of what we're like. Listen, I got to abstract on a certain level here. But, there's always people that I could turn to that did know how the knobs turn and the trick was connecting them. Um, and we were thinking about how to fix that sort of problem because if you would agree, talking with younger people, again, what I've been saying is that for a lot of younger people, a computer looks like this. And mine is an ancient one. You see this? This is called a button. This is a thing I can touch. I want kids to be using one of
Yeah.
these. Um, oh, I was so proud of my son. He called me down. He was so excited because he, for the first time, tried to use the WSAD keys on the keyboard
Hmm.
to move for a race because the arrow keys weren't supported. And he was awesome at it. And I'm like, yeah. And then he invited me to play with him, and he kicked my butt in the race. He beat me by like 30 seconds. I'm like, whoa. He's like, Dad, I did it. I did it on SAD. And I'm like, you finally listened to me. But a lot of these skills, like, how did you learn all your computer skills? Was it all in school or just personal study or what?
I destroyed my family's computer more times than I want to count and was up till 3, 4 a.m. restoring it after I broke it
At least you
in
learn how to
secret.
fix. At least you put it back
Yeah.
together. I have all the parts here, Dad. I can put this back together.
No, 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 he did not know.
It's just what about you, Vivek?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, breaking stuff and then putting it back together. I've
Tinkering.
defragmented my drive more times than I can remember because I used to just fill it up with all kinds of crap.
Mm.
For me, it was learning. Once you realize that, contrary to what again, the very much the concept of the family computer, I think, sort of dates all of us. That
Yeah.
I had a family computer, and again, it's like but my parents chose to get a Mac. And so I was in my own, I'm like, I can't play all these games. Man, that stinks. It's all done on PC. So not, they just made that because it was more artistically, easier to do, supposedly. And it was a different time. Um, but tinkering and learning that computers don't necessarily just break. You can tinker with things if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But as I learned in comp sci, you can break things real good. Like again, if you needed a memory leak or a segmentation fault, I'm your man. Um, which is why I don't code. I wonder how much of an impact if we just hand wave away all of this underlying engineering knowledge to AI and just assume that the robots will forever maintain the machines. Ugh. When I say that out loud, it doesn't
So
sound like a good
years
plan.
ago, so I have another company that does regulatory affairs for pharmaceuticals, which is basically we get hundreds of thousands to literally millions of pages of documents, and we have to go through documents and create bookmarks and links to link the content together to create a coherent story between documents that were created over a 20-year span.
Right.
And so it's really just opening up. The job was opening up PDFs on our Office network
Read.
and
Read them.
skimming through for keywords and outlining them in Adobe. That was the job. And we hire sort of people right out of college. This is their first job. They're cheap. It's cheap and it's not skilled
We
labor.
haven't figured out how to get a machine to do this yet, so
Yeah.
you'll do.
And so I ended up hiring a woman who interviewed really well. I mean, she's smart lady, and just out of college, had some background, like a marketing background, something like that. But when she started, her first day, she sat in front of the computer for an hour because she couldn't figure out how to turn it on because it wasn't an iPhone.
Oh my God. Hey, guys, I got to drop off, but
Oh,
great seeing you again.
Yeah.
I'll be
good seeing
back in a
you.
bit, probably. Yeah, I
Okay.
got on a meeting. Right. See ya. Bye.
We're gonna grumble about the kids.
Yeah. So she did not last to hour two. And after that, we put together a skills test for our interview process, which is the first thing people do, which is a piece of paper that's instruction one is turn on the computer and navigate to this folder.
That's like in the world of remote work, some guy's gonna come in with two legs in the same pant leg. And is like, sir, do you not know how to put on pants? Well, maybe I don't have my own way of doing it. Do you ever
Mhm.
think of that? Creative thinking, outside the box thinking. But yeah, I've also heard that again, I graduated undergraduate in 2004 and I finished my MBA in 2012. And that was at a time when the online MBAs were starting
Yeah.
to come online. And I remember once I finished my MBA that I had to go to a building for, I was getting a little grumbly about like the Phoenix Academies or whatever, the online only MBAs. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're cheapening my degree, just like you did with my
Hmm.
undergraduate degree. What's next? I have to get a PhD. Um, but it was the people that when you went to graduate school, I learned that when we would introduce ourselves, I was working. This was a
Hmm.
night class thing. I wasn't a full-time student, nor had I been for
Yeah.
quite some time. So I had this thing called real world experience, which
Yes.
when after the first few semesters, I learned when we went around and when the person's background was, I went to Loyola University for graduate, and they said that their background was I was an undergraduate at Loyola University, i.e., this is my fifth year of college, and my entirety of my life's experience is
Yeah.
theoretical book knowledge. They were great to give tasks to. They were not great coming up with ideas that were
Yeah.
found outside of the book. Or it was interesting because these were very, very bright people that,
Hmm.
you could tell they were smart. They were very, very smart, but all of a sudden, this is where like a plumber is suddenly more capable in a situation than a doctor, like a brain
Yeah.
surgeon. Like when water is shooting out of a toilet, all of a sudden the best brain surgeon in the world is not necessarily
Hmm.
equipped for this particular set of struggles. And he really hopes that the plumber is there. That's interesting. But I've heard rumblings of it used to be that now there's cybersecurity graduate degrees that you can
Yeah.
get. I do not.
I'm in one. I'm working on a master's in cybersecurity right now.
I don't have one because it literally didn't exist.
Yeah.
you know, and same reason why, I just didn't a lot of the people who are the maintainers probably don't have these certifications because they know how the machines work. They don't need,
Yeah.
they are the certification. And I also suspect some of them like the job security of being the only one who knows how to do something.
Yeah.
And the idea that the knowledge dies with them is appealing. So we have to trick them into writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking
Or
about,
fire them and knock that one block out of the stack.
and then, oh, well, we got to rebuild it. Who's going to
Yep.
rebuild it? Well, I hope the Graybeards were. So here's the lucky thing because of it would be like if we as humans forgot blacksmithing. You couldn't go back
Mhm.
to the first blacksmiths and ask, like, hey, how did you do all these things? Because progress was much slower. With the speed that we progress, for better or for worse, not all the blocks would fall down.
Yeah.
And there are guides. We have to explore. We're gonna find dusty paper copies of the directions on how these systems work. And we're also lucky that this has all happened within a human lifetime, and most of the people basically it's Gen X. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Gen X is who we are talking about. They are the ones that actually they're the cool older cousins that taught old millennials like me what movies to like, that computers are these really cool things that you could do, and there's this thing called the internet. What's that?
Yeah.
It's a computer that you can connect to other computers. Whoa, that's great. They're still alive and healthy, and in some cases still working. The trick is to find these people. Um, a lot of them are working for big companies,
Hmm.
and they are well paid for their efforts. I know this because I worked amongst them. Um, and the thing that's a little bit distressing to me is that every single one of them has an ironclad non-compete clause as a condition
Mm.
of having a very, very nice salary. We get perks. Here's a Yeti mug. I've got dozens of this sort of thing. They give us steaks. They would send us grilling stuff, camp chairs, coolers, like all this like high-end swag that they just
Yeah.
send it to me because they were bribing me to include
Yeah.
solution in my stuff. And when you talk to these people, you go from partner manufacturer for a few years, it's just this back and
Yeah.
forth ping pong because that's how you get around the non-compete. But each time you have a new non-compete that gets put in place. So a lot of I am one of the few SEs, sales
Hmm.
engineers, that I've encountered that have started their own businesses because so many of us are working for companies making fantastic salaries. It's great, you know. And usually they're like the only one left, and there's a lot of young people that they're supposed to be like filling in the gaps, or the territories are like getting absurdly large. Like I'm the SE for the East Coast,
Yeah.
you know, and I cover everything. I'm one guy, um, and no one is going to be able to replace me. Um, how do you think that's like? What are your thoughts on this? I've been talking a while, so
I mean, I think it's an unsustainable model.
efficiency
Yeah.
will not get us through the day.
Yeah.
Of just because the next one is, well, we
The
just have to get all these really smart people what they know into some AI LLM, and that'll
hmm
just solve all our problems. And
and it won't.
I I am skeptical. In fact, I'm confident that you're wrong. As soon as something novel happens,
Yeah.
that you've never seen,
And novel happens far too frequently.
yeah, and or things interacting in a weird way that like the Cloudflare outage. They
Yep.
never had an outage like that until they did. And it was
Hmm.
a whole bunch of different circumstances that came
And
together and broke parts of the
and
internet.
you pull in libraries for your coding, and you have no idea what libraries the libraries are pulling in, and what is all interconnected. And one person pushes one thing, and again, half the internet goes down because everyone is using this library without realizing it.
And that
And
makes me
there's no
scared
way.
more. That was just, incompetence.
Yeah.
We'll call it what it is. There was no malice behind her actions. Imagine if there was malice,
Yeah.
because that's where there's a lot of trust. Again, the population that maintains these things and the Venn diagram, there's probably some
Hmm.
overlap with people who are likely to engage in high-level cyber crime or cyber warfare. Or in some cases, we know for a fact that they've been like embedded by nation states for long
Oh yeah.
term. Putting a secret, your purpose is to put a secret backdoor into this encryption standard that only we know about. And I think there was an instance where that sort of thing got caught, that they've been working on for years, and we wouldn't know. It just, like you
Yeah.
say, something breaks somewhere, like 3 levels up. That broke, and whoopsie do. Turns out
I
that
mean,
was,
that's what 0 days are. It's, frequently there, some tiny library, some flaw was found, and it's in everything. And
yep.
you don't even, there's no way for you as the end stage developer to even know that this library impacts your software, let alone that,
Fixing and
yeah,
the idea of fixing it, no.
yeah.
No, we can't. No. That's, do you have any idea what would be involved in fixing this in everything? It
Yeah.
would be like, why imagine doing Y2K in the year
My
2025.
daughter just asked me about to reminisce about Y2K and what that actually was and all of that.
Actually, can you tell me about, because again, I was in high school when that happened, so I knew about it, and the world didn't end.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, they figured it out.
Well, I mean, I was in college at the time, so it wasn't, I wasn't exactly in
You have
the
a slightly different perspective than I
yeah.
did. They didn't tell us high schoolers the whole
I
story.
mean, it was basically everyone was panic. It felt like everyone was panicking for a year and a half, and then a big nothing burger
And you
because
almost wish that
it
something
actually
had
was a
happened
threat.
just a little bit, because
Yeah.
that's like the original sin of 2 bits now. Somebody will fix this in the
Yeah.
future. And there are I mean, some of those dumb decisions that were made in these libraries that we now identify as
Hmm.
vulnerabilities, there might have been a perfectly legitimate reason for why something like that the thing about the configuration size capping it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Storage used to be provisioned by, if you wanted 10 megabytes, you got 10
yep.
megabytes. And heaven help you, if you try to put a single kilobyte above that, it
Hmm.
dies.
My
Um,
daughter was particularly amused when I told her the ball dropped and I cut off the lights to the room.
that's what I was waiting for. It was like with a certain amount of dread, or hearing like sirens in the background. Yeah, and that, again, just to bring it back and not be all doom and gloom, this is the reason why I got into the business that I'm in.
Hmm.
Because again, my son was born in 2016. He has never known a time without this wondrous, terrible world that we've built
Yeah.
for ourselves. Um, and I'm trying to teach him the basics and again, I'm not an engineer by trade. Everything I've done, I've picked up along the way. AI has been an immense help, but I better do it now before someone corrupts AI and teaches
Hmm.
us to write insecure code, or just hand waves and says it's not something humans should do anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like a good
Oh,
idea.
vibe coding.
Like the documentary. Oh God. So if you want to feel old, I make the joke, the documentary, the Terminator, about why
Hmm.
we shouldn't make eyes red on the robots and stuff like that. I was talking to this young man, Mohammed Bari, who's from Mead High School. He reached out to me about, he's in a cyber patriot, cybersecurity league that I'm gonna try to find a way to work with them and potentially bring
Hmm.
a connection, bringing it into this, the HoCo Cyber Collective. We're all startup entrepreneurs that are probably looking for, let's be honest, low cost but enthusiastic workforce that's looking
Yeah.
for internships, experience. These are self-selected, very driven young people that chose to be in the cybersecurity club. those are the people that we should be
Yeah.
taking under our wing. And what I'm sorry about for the woman who didn't know how to turn on a computer is that no one in her, how many years had she been through schooling, had ever
Yeah.
bothered to teach her how to do it. This stuff isn't
Hmm.
necessarily intuitive, although I will say that my son knows how to unlock my phone and, he knows the passwords to
Same.
things. And I've changed the passwords once, where I'm like, this is, and, going through his YouTube history and just like, nope,
Yeah.
nope, 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 nope. We're not doing that. We're going to talk about that because that's, as a parent who wants to be responsible, I have to know what he's
Yeah.
doing. I have to force this older dog to learn new tricks because the alternative is, I don't know if your experience with the family computer was this, but my parents had no idea what I was
Oh
doing
yeah.
on it, and had no interest in learning because, again, boomers. they, they don't get the
My
words.
dad fancied himself very technologically savvy, and he was not.
Who was that?
My dad.
What? So he was
He
savvy or he wasn't?
no, he thought he was, but he wasn't.
Oh, that's the worst. Those are the people that can get themselves into trouble, especially in this day and
He thought
age.
he was because in the late 70s, early 80s, he wrote an algorithm for calculating oxygen levels in newborns. He's a neonatologist,
Wow.
but that's where his understanding of technology stopped with
So
the
it's really
Sinclair.
fun. So that's my grandfather was not my grandfather, my father-in-law. He was a VP at a bank and wrote in DBase,
Hmm.
IBM. He wrote database applications back in the 80s, green
Yeah.
screen type thing. He still has old computers in the basement that I was geeking out when you know, his two daughters and his wife had no interest in this, but I'm like, can you turn that on? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was so happy that he was able to do it. But he will say, like, I can't understand this stuff. And I can't understand it. And I'm like, Dad, you wrote command line database.
Hmm.
You are capable. You can do things that I cannot do.
Yeah.
Um, don't sell yourself short. Although, again, I'm now, as I'm becoming older, I'm starting to gain a lot of empathy and sympathy for why did they change the way that this application looks? Oh, well,
Yeah.
we just did that. Why is there a new Outlook application? I hate this. I don't use a tablet. Oh, you want to turn it off? We turned it on by default. It's like, I don't know how to use a computer. It's it's tough. My parents are at the edge of their ski tips on this stuff. I
Yeah.
done my best to teach, and they listen, which is nice. They ask me if they need help. I help Dad with these petty irritations that he puts up with. That I'm like, Dad, I can fix that for you if you like. Um, and talking about this was actually my proudest engineering moment. You talking about something breaking upstream. I had set up wireless in my parents' home. So I Google Wi-Fi. It was the greatest thing ever.
Hmm.
They could, because Dad, they said they were talking about how few fans they had, like the wireless symbol they thought looked like
Yeah.
a woman's fan. So they say we have full fans now. Dad couldn't read the morning newspaper on his phone in like one room over because they had wireless from their router at where the TV was, and that
Yeah.
was surrounded by wood and brick and stuff like that. So the signal was awful.
Hmm.
And this was before everybody had unlimited data. So if you could go on wireless on one of these data suckers, you
Yeah.
do it because it costs money going over. And I did this with my in-laws too, and it was the same thing. We're like, Colin, don't do that. You don't need to. And then after I built it, they're like, we didn't know how slow it was. We didn't realize how bad it was. And thank you so much for doing this. Dad could read the newspaper. I felt great. But that meant that I have a little visualization, and they had just paid for more expensive internet. They got gigabit internet.
Yeah.
we weren't getting gigabit speeds. And I'm like, and I can prove it. Like if I plug into
Am I loud?
what's that?
Oh,
Am I? No, I'm loud, I guess. I'll whisper.
I will be.
We good?
Sorry.
Everything
Yeah,
okay?
I'm in a co-working spot and they're prepping for a big group coming in. So I was being
You should
asked
probably.
to move over in half an hour.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's fine.
Sorry about that.
No. But for some reason on their, this is with my newly found networking skills, I was able to troubleshoot for some weird reason on their Xfinity router, port 2 was set to 100 meg as the cap.
Mhm.
I changed it to gigabit.
Yep.
Miraculously, the speed was 10 times faster. I did the exact same thing with my in-laws, and it's not often you get to say, would you like it if I made something 10 times
Yes.
faster? I always like it when you can do something like that. But they would have never known that. And
Yeah.
I very much doubt the Comcast guy would have necessarily been going on the
Oh no,
command line
they
to check
didn't.
port feeds. Um, and that was me just logging into their home router and just screwing around to see what I could find. I might technically be violating some agreement with Comcast that I not do such a thing, but hey,
Yeah.
you left the password on the side. I assume that me to
If they
go into
really
it.
cared, they would keep you from doing it.
Yeah, you would have stopped me if I wasn't supposed to do this. And then I also learned the hard way when you don't work
Mm.
for a company that has a tech support that if you break something, you are the ones who have to fix it.
You are
And
the tech support.
if you break the internet, that's bad. Um, no, that's but I wanted to finish this up. Was there any other like things you wanted to bring up or
No, I'm just yeah, signing in to see who else signs in and chat for a while.
I appreciate you. And I wanted to share one. This is the one I didn't want to lead with this because I want other people to have a chance. But just we were, CRN Guard Tower. Our product was just named the 2025 Stellar Startup for Security. Um, this is something that my business partner Keith Alexis has obviously been working. This was a fantastic article. And I'm just trying to share the good news on that because it was definitely I said
Yeah.
I instilled it with HCEDA, Bob, and whatnot because they want to hear about our wins, and it was really nice to get some recognition
Recognition.
recognized recognition is a word I'm mangling here. It's very cromulent. But yeah, it was nice to get that end of week win. And next week we're doing more training. Anything fun you got queued up for the next week?
Well, I've got Thanksgiving, so I'm taking days off.
Oh, right. Thanksgiving, Turkey Day. We do have our next week. It's um on the 25th. Yes. We are sales strategies for startups. Sales stuff. That'll be a fun topic
Yeah.
that'll be you have perfect freedom though, I will say.
Mm,
And one thing that I will say that and just to pass this on from to someone who has developed a product, thinking about how you sell it is very, very important. And I've
yeah.
seen examples of where you get the sense that how you sell it is an afterthought. And when you're making a product that you're trying to sell, thinking about how you sell it is very, very consequential.
hmm
And speaking from
Um,
experience, you know, making it easy and
yeah.
thoughtful and not arbitrary, and stuff like that. So,
I mean, my big issue is the real product that I want to make. I know exactly what I want to make. And I know that, and I've done the market research on it. There's a huge amount of demand for it. The problem is that it's too big a product for me as a solo founder bootstrapping it to be able to build.
gotcha.
And so I'm trying to come up with a smaller product that the reality is anything I can come up with, my system is dramatic overkill for it. But I'm trying to make a stepping stone. And the problem is I can't get funding until I get a customer. I can't get a customer until I get a product. Can't get a product until I get a developer. Can't get a developer.
I understand.
And
And for what it's worth, I greatly sympathize with you because
yeah,
that once you get the first one,
exactly.
all you gotta do is get that first one. But that sometimes I guess again, just keep coming to these sort of things. You never know who you're gonna meet.
Oh yeah,
Meet someone that's like, partner with a single company that needs the technology and is willing to fund part of it. Again,
yeah.
you also, correct me if I'm wrong, have the capability of writing code in a way that
I'm not very good at it.
I was
Uh,
the undergraduate in comp sci. That's the reason I'm not a coder, and I still make the same mistakes.
so up until last year, I could probably say that the only computer course I had ever taken was a typing course in the 8th grade that started with mechanical typewriters.
Nice. I had one of those, or at least we had
Yes.
one in the house. We had the home typewriter. um, but anyway, well, Josh, it was really good seeing you. I'm looking forward to the next
Yeah.
in-person thing. And yeah, well, anyone who's still listening, thanks for checking in. And Josh, good seeing you, and have a
Yes.
good
Good to see you
weekend.
too. You
Talk to
too.
everybody later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the HoCo Cyber Collective Podcast. Stay connected, stay curious, and join us again for our next episode.
Brought to you by the HoCo Cyber Collective.